move it underneath my camera. There we go. Howdy, everybody. Welcome. If this is actually going to be a highlight, I just got back from a little jog on the outside. Open up Twitter, and there it was. A Dark Heart in-game cinematic. This is going to be connected to the prologue for The Harbinger, which is going to be set for next week. If there's something interesting to be said about this, then you're going to be seeing this up on YouTube. So if you are, hello there. Let's check it out. Okay. Immediately people.
My people are no strangers to voices from below, but this radiant song is different.
It's being heard all across Azeroth. The Council doesn't know what to make of it.
There must be someone who does. I'll let you know what I find.
Valeria. It's been too long, old friend.
Good to see you, Khadgar. Doing well?
As well as can be expected.
Okay, so people have forgotten about Magni, which is interesting, and Illyria has that voice going on. We'll talk about Illyria's history in just a moment.
How's the family?
I haven't... It's better if I keep my distance.
Of course, the Void. That would be... Actually, your connection to the Void is why I asked you here. We still don't know what this Dark Heart relic is capable of, but we do know it's in the hands of someone called the Harbinger. Who they are and what they intend to do remains a mystery, which is why I need your help.
To hunt down a dangerous foe we know nothing about. Honestly, I could use the distraction.
Same old Illyria. Void or no void. I didn't mean to...
See you soon, Khadgar. Dark Heart in hand.
Okay. Okay, so definitely bits and pieces to talk about. Okay. So, for those who are like, okay, I'm completely new, I haven't heard anything yet, at the end of Dragonflight, we could already see dialogue where they're hearing the voice of Azeroth, but they don't know where the voice is coming from. They're hearing a voice, a song, some ringing, and they're trying to figure out what is going on. Jaina makes mention that her people are familiar with listening to the voices. I believe it has to do with the Tide Speakers. Speaking to the tides, but they're not exactly sure what is happening. Now, I do find it interesting that considering after the events of Battle for Azeroth, where something like Azeroth, the Chamber of Hearts, the necklace, Magni, like they weren't exactly secrets. Let's keep this nice and spoiler-free. So, point being, this voice does not immediately make them think like, oh, it's Azeroth, and this also relates to something like a Thrall and an Anduin in the desert, where, they're very confused and they think like, oh yeah, the sword in Silphus has something to do with it, and they're like, yeah, that was aimed at something. There's a little bit of amnesia going on when it comes to Azeroth, her spirit, I guess. Now, Illyria and Khadgar have a massive history, and she asks Khadgar...
Good to see you, Khadgar. Doing well?
As well as can be expected.
So, Khadgar, we did a little bit of a calculation the other day on Discord, and I think I'm going to make this a full-blown video as well. We're going to calculate the age of some of these characters. I believe Khadgar is around 60 to 65-ish, but he also went into a fight with the corrupted Guardian Medivh, who potentially sucked out some of his life force, maybe not, magically aged him, that's for sure. Young man in an old man's body, and during the Shadowlands, he also started to look around and was like, oh, let me just have a little look-see at where I might end up. And it's like, Khadgar, you okay, buddy? You alright? So Khadgar invites Illyria over to hunt a dangerous foe, and I'm trying to remember what this specifically relates to. Because, like, the history between Khadgar and Illyria is extensive and goes all the way back to the formation of the Alliance of Lordaeron. So this requires a bit of music. Their history takes us back to the formation of the Alliance of Lordaeron. This was when the Dark Portal opened up for the first time. That corrupted Guardian Medivh opened up the Dark Portal. Khadgar found out about his mentor's corruption. Medivh was Khadgar's mentor, confronted him, slain him, but the Horde and the portal was already open, was already on its way. There was no stopping that, and Stormwind fell. The survivors of Stormwind, Varian, Khadgar, Lothar, and a whole bunch of others went to Lordaeron to warn them of the threat of the Horde. Now, you might imagine that that was just fantasy talk, right? Like, the Alliance of Lordaeron was not instantly formed. They weren't instantly convinced. But under the guidance of Lothar and Tyrellian, their words were heard, and the human kingdoms realized that the threat of the Horde was very real. In the case of Illyria, she was called upon by an ancient blood pact, which is connected to Anduin Lothar. Anduin Lothar is connected to the Arathi bloodline, which is an ancient bloodline, all the way back when they were still living in tribes and the human kingdoms were still divided. Thoradin of Arathor united the human clans. They united with the elves, and they kicked the crap out of the trolls. From that, this ancient pact remains, that if the humans ever needed the help of the High Elves, all they had to do was to call. And seeing how Lothar was part of the bloodline, he called upon the High Elves. The orcs were there, they needed help, come help us out. In response, the High Elves were like, well, it's probably not going to affect us, like we got our magical shields and whatnot, we're just going to send a token force. But Illyria knew better, and she full-on pledged herself to the Alliance of Lordaeron, where she met with Tyrellian and also fell in love with him. And she also met Khadgar, and they would save the day. They would defeat the first Horde invasion. Then the Dark Portal opened up for the second time, and our heroes, the Sons of Lothar, they stepped through the Dark Portal this time in order to stop the Horde from making more portals and doing the same damage as they done to other worlds as they done to Azeroth. That's why in front of Stormwind you see these statues of Tyrellian, Illyria, Khadgar, Dunoff, and Trollbane. No, Dunoff, Trollbane, and Kurdran. Those statues are there because the Alliance, those that remained on Azeroth, had no idea if our heroes survived on Outland or on Draenor, as we still called it back then. All we knew was that there was a massive explosion and the Dark Portal shut down. But the Sons of Lothar did survive. Our heroes did survive, as we learned with the Burning Crusade, where the Dark Portal reopened, and we went in there. Now, there's a lot of history between Khadgar and Illyria. And when something needs to be tracked down, it's definitely Illyria to choose. I'm trying to remember if there was like an old Warcraft 2 campaign in which he had to hunt down something like a book, and that was then retconned. But either way, there are many moments which they could refer to. I'm honestly racking my brain what they mean here, and it irks me that I can't instantly recall it. Either way, last time that we saw Illyria on a hunt is when she was trying to track down her sister Sylvanas. The whole Shadowlands thing, the whole Sylvanas is the enemy. Illyria tried to find her sister, and she became so desperate to find answers, she became so desperate in tracking down her sister, that together with Tyrellian, they held a group of Horde members, and they interrogated them, but they weren't getting any answers. So Tyrellian used the light to cuff, I believe it was an orc female, and then Illyria used the void to infiltrate her mind, cause massive damage, search for answers, and, you know, they went through quite the extreme in order to get things done. And now, once again, she's put on the mission of trying to find out the Dark Heart, the Harbinger, what's going on here. It's also interesting that she has been spending time with her family, and Khadgar's like, oh yeah, that's the Void. So when it's a lot of history, we definitely need to make a more specific video, I think. I got a playlist with videos related to the War Within if you want to prepare yourself spoiler free. I'll also list a couple of them down below. But in their time on Draenor/Outland, Illyria and Tyrellian were not found when the Burning Crusade, when the Dark Portal reopened. And for a very long time, they teased, like, oh yeah, where did Illyria and Tyrellian go? And Illyria and Tyrellian were picked up by the Army of the Light, and they went off to fight the Burning Legion. And during their adventures, Illyria got in touch with the Locust Walker. And whereas Tyrellian was very much connected to the Naru Zera, Illyria felt like the light was not her path, and instead she found her path in the void. But light and void doesn't really mix together. It's quite painful to have light and void touch each other. So I'm guessing that her void connection is actually what pushed her away from Trellian, who at this point in time has led the Alliance through its greatest period of peace in the last 30 plus years, because we've had like a time skip between Shadowlands and Dragonflight, so there's been where nothing happened on Azeroth, right? So while Trellian definitely has the potential of causing a big old war, as the music goes into crescendo, he hasn't. He actually done the opposite. He's led it through a very peaceful time. So, in the case of Illyria Trellian, there's a bit of a family trouble there, together with her son Arator. Arator always had these dreams about his father dying on a distant planet, but that never went anywhere. Instead, he was reunited with them as we met the Army of the Light during the expansion Legion. So I'm guessing that Illyria just hasn't had that much time spent with her husband, with her child. They are going to have a book, a short story collection, in which they are going to be dealing with Illyria and Arator, so maybe that will play a part. Or maybe they'll explain like what's happening there in the family spheres. There is the interesting connection of Illyria fearing being taken over by the Voids, and her anchors is like her love to her child and to Trellian. Imagine if something happens to those, what would happen to Illyria? Or imagine if she was able to be convinced that the Void is the path in order to save them and to give herself fully. Because at this point in time, she has absorbed like the dark core of Anaru, the dark power of Anaru during Legion. So she has the Void inside of her. She then went on to lead the Void Elves. She also visited the Sunwell, which had a very negative reaction to her presence. So if there's any potential of somebody falling to the dark side, it's definitely Illyria. But perhaps that will make her also the most powerful agent to stand against something like Xal'atath. That is the Harbinger that they're talking about. But from the people in the world's perspective, Xal'atath is... I'm trying to remember if they know about Xal'atath. And it depends. Like, we've seen, of course, Shadow Priest wield their artifacts. But it's the question, like, did Shadow Priest tell people, like, oh yeah, my weapon is totally whispering to me? Then Xal'atath took a body. But that all happened with us in a single-player campaign. Did we ever tell anyone what happened with Xal'atath, I wonder? Do we even remember what happened to Xal'atath, considering that N'Zoth put, like, a whole eye on top of her head? But that's speculation. In essence, they don't know, even if they would know about Xal'atath, they don't know that the Harbinger equals Xal'atath, right? And the Dark Heart that they're talking about is rather interesting. The Dark Heart is the trinket that Iridikron had during Dragonflight. And the trinket they found in the Forbidden Reach, hidden there by Deathwing. And the moment that they picked it up, it was really weird, because why would they know about some secret trinket hidden by Deathwing? It wasn't exactly like they were buddy-buddy. And it gave them coordinates to the next patch, to Aberrus, to his hidden laboratory. But also, more than that, it also allowed them to suck the corruption out of Galagrond, a corruption which has its roots with the old god Yogg-Saron. And it allows Xal'atath to do things. And Khadgar's concerned about the Dark Heart. They do know that it's called the Dark Heart because there was a final dialogue between Iridikron and Virinov. So that's how they know about the Dark Heart. And we need it. Whatever it is, we need to stop it, right, Khadgar? Do you give a motivation as to why we need it?
How's the family?
I haven't... It's better if I keep my distance.
Of course. The Void.
Let me stop the music, hang on.
Your connection to the Void is why I asked you here. We still don't know what this Dark Heart relic is capable of. But we do know it's in the hands of someone called the Harbinger.
Okay, we fear it because we don't know it.
Who
Fair.
they are and what they intend to do remains a mystery.
About. Honestly, I could use the distraction.
I didn't mean to,
See you soon, Khadgar.
Yeah.
Dark Heart in hand.
Right, yeah. So there's definitely concerns when it comes to her and the Void connection. Right, yeah, definitely have some interesting things to say. So, hope you enjoyed the initial reaction. And of course, next week, the Dark Heart is popping off. We're going to get the prologue. We're going to get the quest lines attached to this, I imagine. So, yeah. War Within is getting ever closer and closer. For those curious, like I said, I've got a playlist with spoiler-free videos if you want to prepare. I've also been covering the War Within Alpha, of course. Got a playlist on that for those that want the spoilers. It's tagged War Within Alpha in the title. And a video for those that have been asking, like, I want to jump back into WoW. Do you have something that's going to let me catch up? I want to see what the zones offer in the alpha, and then I can be more specific about, okay, this is what you need to know, but that's also coming. Just a heads up, I want to use the last bit of this video to dive into spoilers for the War Within. If you don't want any spoilers, please turn off the video right now. After watching this, we ended up in a little bit of a discussion on Discord, and we talked about what we saw. And of course, the question is, okay, what now? How does this connect to what's going to happen in-game? What are we going to see? The sky's the limit, but what I did notice is that the Illyria that we see here looks completely different than the Illyria that we've seen in the War Within so far. She is very hell-bent on getting her hands on Xal'atath. She knows that Xal'atath is the Harbinger. We've also heard mention of the Locust Walker, so I'm going to assume that Illyria is going to get some information, right? Talk to the Locust Walker, find out more about the Void, and then do whatever she needs to do. Now, what I would find a really interesting scenario and a really heartbreaking one and a really, really sick beginning is if it's Illyria that's responsible for the destruction of Dalaran and the death of Khadgar. Imagine if, and it would also, like, it would add value to Xal'atath's manipulations and something I'm hoping to see at the end, which is, you think you win, but not really, because you're dealing with Xal'atath. So imagine if Illyria is able to get her hands on the Dark Heart, she's able to track down Xal'atath, she's able to complete her mission, or so she thinks. She then walks the streets of Dalaran, and the cutscene plays out that we've seen before, where the song that she hears is completely different from the others. It's not the sweet melody, but it's the Void that calls. And as she hands over the Dark Heart to Khadgar, the Void takes control. The Void takes control, and all hell breaks loose, and Illyria's transformed, and Dalaran goes down, and this is what allows the Nerubians and Xal'atath to actually strike. That it would be on Illyria's hands for letting them into the city and being responsible for this. I think it would be really cool. As I'm talking about this, I do wonder how that would line up with the timeline, because we have to keep in mind that this is the Harbinger episode, so maybe there's an introduction as to what is Illyria doing right now, and she's on the hunt, and then later she would complete her hunt as the intro to War Within starts. But yeah, I would find it rather devastating for Illyria, but also a massive motivator for her to be so hell-bent on tracking down Xal'atath, which she has been so far. And then, again, Xal'atath could be like, oh, you think you've won? No. In fact, you've been playing a whole different game than I have. This is what's really been going on. That is something that I'm hoping to see. And then at the end of the War Within, the world can be plunged into darkness, and we can actually lose, and then we can crawl ourselves out of the muck, or maybe even have a time skip and see like a 10-year time skip where Azor's been taken over by the Void and now deal with the aftermath. There's so many cool things that they can do. But yeah, I wanted to throw out some random thoughts here. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, see ya!